Okay, back live. In this time, I think I'm not gonna post it anywhere because I don't give a fuck, simply. But I needed to talk out loud about this before, and I don't want to make like a script, sitting down writing and making a script. So I'm going to be talking about my reflections first. My reflections, I don't know how to call this video. It's like being a train driver versus being a R&D aerospace consultant. I think I'm going to keep that. It feels like you're being paid for being like someone's mindless hoe, basically. So you're basically just a puppet that shows up whenever they tell you to do, and you do whatever they say, and there's very little leeway to think. It's not like a thinking job. It's like your thinking has very little to do with what it goes on. It's basically you're paid to do stuff, and this doing is very specific, with very little leeway to move. It's like there are and you're very capped in everything. In actions, ways to succeed, etc. For example, succeeding as a train driver, it's really just being on time, provided everyone else was on time before you, and the way you can see the mindlessness in the conversations people have. I mean, both are similar in these lots of rules, right?
Pensionistas. O sea, mientras los que trabajáis para terceros Y los que habéis trabajado toda vuestra vida, sois la mayoría, la riqueza está concentrada en manos de unos pocos. ¿Qué modelo de sociedad es ese? ¿Quién es el dueño de la máquina de producir dinero? El empresario. ¿Quién tiene que ser libre para hacer lo que quiera? El empresario. Tú alquilas tu mano, tu tiempo, tu vida, pero a ti no se te considera generador de riqueza. A ti se te considera asalariado. Ese es el modelo neoliberal. Y esa es la libertad que quiere mi ley. Ahora, como esto, hay que ser muy bobo para comprárselo a los neoliberales, y ellos saben que esto no se lo vas a comprar y no les votarías nunca si fueras consciente de esta realidad, te tienen que vender otra moto. Y para venderte una moto necesitan dos cosas. Necesitan dos cosas. Una, que seas bobo a las tres. O sea, un bobo con balcones a la calle. Y por eso cuando dicen que el sistema te quiere tonto, ese es el sistema neoliberal te quiere tonto. Porque la izquierda no te quiere tonto. ¿Sabes por qué? Porque ya son mayoría. Entre el 40 y tantos por ciento, 27, sumáis, porque yo no pertenezco a ninguna de esas dos clases, sumáis una inmensa mayoría. No hace falta engañaros. La izquierda lo que quiere es que cojáis conciencia de clase. Claro, con eso es suficiente que seáis conscientes de que sois mayoría. No tiene que engañar, quiere que seáis listos, avispados, que os deis cuenta de una realidad. Sois mayoría. Todos los neoliberales, que son minoría, necesitan repartir la riqueza y quedársela a ellos prácticamente toda, necesitan que les votes, que son minoría. Esto sí que tienen que vender una moto, porque como son minoría, tienen que colarte algo. Y como el discurso económico tienes que ser muy bobo para comprarlo, pero aún así logran que lo compres, lo que tienen que hacer es hacer otra cosa, es venderte algo que sí les puedas comprar. Como por ejemplo, lo que Pacheco, los inmigrantes, primero los españoles, la prioridad nacional, la eso sí, les gusta mucho y a ti te gusta mucho saber que en tu miseria tienes a alguien por detrás, más miserable. Eso te encanta. Y que no pienses en quién es y a qué se dedican los hijos de José María Aznar. ¿A qué no lo sabes? ¿Verdad que no lo sabes? ¿O no sabes cuántos pisos le vendió la mujer de Aznar a la botella a los fondos buitre? Pisos de todos los españoles. Tampoco lo sabes. ¿Y a qué no sabes a quién ha invitado a Ayuso a hacer grandes negocios de Madrid? A fondos buitres. Estos son los que te van a dar a ti casa. En fin. Pues oye, yo creo que cuando hablo con muchos de vosotros estáis tan absolutamente cómodos en una mentira que os hace felices, en ser antisanchistas, que os encanta, y en mirar hacia abajo que os encanta, que no queréis afrontar una realidad. ¿Qué tenéis que tener? Neoliberalismo a punta pala. Pues muy bien, a disfrutar de lo votado. Vamos a verme de aquí a la Argentina y me yo te lo cuento, yo te lo cuento.
So, back again. Research and development consultant. You're kind of paid to think, which feels and sounds nice in a way. The problem is that what you're thinking, at least in R&D, is like some kind of purposeless sense. But the conversations are like at least more interesting. They're more about what's capable of, like what can happen, what's possible, what isn't. But the metrics are arbitrary. It's the tough thing about having a salary and so on, while having this kind of job, weird job. So today I wanted to talk about some out loud reflections from being a train driver versus being a research and development consultant in aerospace. And these are like 2 jobs in the transport industry. I haven't done them a lot for a long time, either of them. One, the research and development consultant, R&D consultant, that thing was like around 1 year, and also at a very low level, basically like a junior. The junior is the most junior it gets. And train driver, right now I haven't actually driven trains alone yet. I'm still in the practice apprenticeship part of it, but I feel like I've got a little taste of both, and I wanted to compare them to each other. I'm going to start with being a train driver because it's what I'm currently doing and what sparked this kind of train of thought on me. And I guess one thing that really stood out to me is that you feel needed in a way, right? The job is very real. When you're driving a train, like there's not a lot to discuss, right? That train needs to be moved in order. Well, need is arguable, but what is sure a thing is that your company wants that train moved from one place to another, and you are doing that. So in that way, you are useful. You are very palpably useful. But you're also replaceable. Anyone from the 1,000 people in your company who worked at this position could do that exact same thing, and you're not bringing anything special that any of them wouldn't bring, aside from small things. There are differences, but useful does not. It's not like a great equilibrium, I would say. And I don't know, before people argue or whatever, I wanted to kind of preemptively cover this argument, and it's like, how do you see the mindlessness? And in my way, it's like seeing the nature of the conversations that people have. And these conversations are like quite limited and quite doomery, you would say. For example, everyone complains a lot about a certain sense, in a certain powerless way, about what the company can't do, how the company should do something better but it can't, and how the orders that they give are so stupid sometimes, how they handle the exception so poorly, and also then talking about their day-to-day lives of like, what do they have to do today, and the things that they have to do today. People talk about them like, yeah, I have this line twice and then this other line twice, and because the work is like so tabulated, you could say, it's like so very clear what each block is. You can conversate about these blocks with people and they understand perfectly what it entails, and the talk is always ends with Feierabend. So when work ends, basically that's like the highlight of your day, is when your work is finished. And that's actually something that is kind of like slowly depressing me in a way. It's like when people talk to each other, the thing they basically highlight the most is when work ends, and when do they have vacation, and so on. Those are like the main things people talk about, which I personally don't really think is great. I don't find that super meaningful. Then another way it feels like constrained is in that people are capped in what they can do positively. So for example, in the ways you can succeed or you can give value, those kind of things are very capped. In the train driving world particularly, because there is like this very clearly timed Fahrplan, it's called in German, timetable for when you have to arrive at each station and when you have to depart. So this timetable is fixed, and if you are good enough that you take a couple of minutes away from something, it just means that you will have to stay for 2 minutes more, before your next departure, right? So you can't shave time and drive a little bit faster if you drive more precisely, and so on. Basically, the only precise thing you can do is kind of find this balance between speed and comfort, more or less thread that needle. But there is not like a way to shave time off and save people time, for example. That you can't do. You can't save people time, because if you save some people time, that means you're losing other people's time, or like you're failing the schedule, so that's bad. And that's another aspect that I feel a little bit iffy about, that I didn't like the taste of it. I feel like I could get used to it maybe if I think of the other side of like, okay, maybe of thinking of this comfort thing, driving the train smoothly and braking smoothly, that is something that gives people pride. So in that way, I do have some respect for the position and so on. I think I'm now going to move on to my thoughts on like this being a research and development aerospace consultant. And one thing that was true is that you were paid to think. So that is a kind of work that is interesting, right? Getting paid to think about stuff and to categorize information and to organize information has a certain, a certain flavor that I do like. The problem in this case, particularly in this research and development context, is that it's low-key purposeless shit that never actually gets done, and you can feel it by the way the projects are handled and so on, and the processes that there are. So you feel that your project is useless and it's never going to get done, and the work you are doing is not useful for anyone. That is the biggest difference compared to being a train driver. When you're a train driver, it's like whether you're replaceable or not doesn't really matter, because you actually can, it's like you can feel that when you are doing it, you are getting paid for it, so you are the one being compensated. Someone else could be being paid for this, but it's you who is. So that's nice. It feels nice. Versus here, it's so purposeless that even if you are getting paid for it and you could think, okay, it's me getting paid instead of someone else, it feels useless, right? It doesn't feel like an exchange of value or something like this. It feels like some kind of numerical error or something going on. At least that's how it felt to me. But conversely, because the work is about thought and so on, this is like more extended to engineering work as well, even if it's real engineering and so on. It's a mix match of my feelings in this small aero consultant role, and also in my experiences in the engineering field, whether in my team, my racing team, or whether experiences I've heard from friends who are engineers and so on. And that is that the conversations, at least, are like much more interesting. I won't say that I'm the biggest engineering fan and so on, or I can like be at this level of like discussing engineering all the time and like really engineer-centric topics. I think I'm also not built that way as some friends who are much more engineer-minded, I would say. But I do like those conversations, having those conversations, and they make me think, because there is sort of thought of like what's possible, what is not possible, okay, kind of like exploring the boundaries and so on, right? For example, in this kind of train driver job, everything is like so tabulated, so stipulated, so calculated, so memorized, so standardized that it's like crazy, right? I'm not even finished, and I already kind of sense so many of these things that are like equal for everyone and so on, for example. So in that way, engineering is like more satisfactory in that sense. It is more about solving problems that have not yet been solved. You can also choose to like the opposite of the thing that I had said before, right? These kind of ways to succeed. It's also sometimes it's also capped in a certain way by physics, for example, right? But it feel in that sense, the ways that the things are capped feel real. For example, if you're designing some kind of part, even if it's for a project that doesn't exist, you know, if you're designing a part, for example, some wing for an airplane, if you're designing this wing and you're optimizing it, and you can't optimize it anymore based on these parameters from this thing, it's like, you know, you have done your best, and maybe there are some, like maybe there could be some other ways or whatever, but using this kind of like approach you've taken, you know that you've reached some kind of like physical limit that is real, you know, that it's at least based, maybe not real in the sense that it's like an actual body of thing that has been experimented on, but the simulation that you have used, kind of like this method that you have used to arrive to this design is actually based on some like real constraints, real forces that you have simulated, or like, yeah. Then the problem with these unreal situations is that sometimes the real forces you are using in things that like that are all made up. That's when you get into trouble, and when, well, not into trouble because the things it's not actually real, but that's when you start feeling bad. You start feeling like there's no purpose when you start taking too many data that is like made up and so on, right? But provided you're working with good data and you're working in a project that even if it's not 100% real, that it feels real, then the limits you find and the caps that you get are like physical, are like mechanical, are those kind of caps. They're not arbitrary caps that are there because of some rule. There are some also rules, and there are some there are also rules that you have to follow, and there is normatives, and there are like guidelines and so on. But these kind of guidelines are usually like pretty sensible, that you can actually follow them pretty closely. For example, yeah, they're usually like safety oriented, and maybe they're dumb because they're like too safe, but being too safe is never like dumb. So, well, in railways, for example, there is the case that they are actually like, they have like so many rules, and like they're so widely apart and so on, but that's also because they have like a very complicated book of rules, you could say. Meanwhile, for example, in aerospace or whatever, there are also like these governing bodies and so on, but it's like you can tell when like what the constraints are and how you where the limitations are. Meanwhile, in this case, the constraints are like just one big internal constraint. It's weird. It's hard to explain, but it's like when you yourself have to make your own rules and no one watches over you, or like the people who watch over you are low-key vague and things so on. It's like you for covering your ass purposes create some mega strict rules that then slow everything down. That's kind of like my railway example. Meanwhile, in the aerospace example, there are some rules, but it's like many of the limitations are actually low-key more physical than actually made up by rules, at least in research and development. Maybe in real aerospace engineering and so on, then maybe it probably runs into similar topics. So yeah, that's my little ramble about these two reflections. Bear in mind that I'm not a pro at any of these both branches, so maybe a pro train driver is like, whoa, you know so little actually about the job. There are like so many exceptions to the rules. There are like so many different days, so many days with surprises where you actually have to think, blah 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 blah. When it really matters, it could be. I'm not arguing really against that, but I don't know. Wouldn't you agree also that the vibe is kind of like what I described? Feel free to disagree in the comments or agree. And yeah, with the consultant thing, I feel like I sold that better, and like this particular purpose of like R&D is just what it entails. R&D entails some kind of like being okay with your project not being the one who is picked, so and rather being the one who gets scanned, and you still got paid. So that's actually dope, right? But yeah, to me it felt a little bit. I was also not getting paid that much, and I was also not learning that much. So if you're not if you're not learning, if you're not getting paid, and you're just getting paid to think, but not that much, and not actually learning too much, then it feels a little bit purposeless. But I could see like some other work that is like more applied, that is actually great work, great engineering work, and that it feels really great. I don't know. I don't know also what I want for my future. I wanted to talk out loud to see if I actually got some kind of like synthesis, and I don't know. I feel like I could go many ways. I could go maybe. I feel like my next path is like going to cars, the topic I've always liked all of my life, but for which for some reason or another I have never actually, or like restoring or something like that, having like my own company where I have to take the decisions but also take the risk of like trying to find something that is like restorable or like something like this. Maybe I feel like that's some kind of vibe that I would like, or like customizations, those kind of things. I feel like I like, even if it's not like strict engineering. Maybe there are like small aspects that where engineering can be helpful, and maybe it's more other things like market research and like some other things. Or maybe it's in engineering. I don't know. Maybe it's like in railway engineering. Maybe it's, who knows? Or maybe it's actually flying planes instead of like driving trains. We'll see what the future holds for me. And yeah, hope you found these reflections interesting. Feel free to leave whatever thoughts got sparked in the comments below. And yeah, thank you for watching if you reached until the end. I'm not sure what I will leave here in the end card, so we'll see. Feel free to watch that if the title seems appetizing. status update February 2026. The last status update official was on September 2025, so still like 5-6 months ago. And yeah, in that one I said that I was going to follow a different type of organization, and I think I'm following the past one. So this previous one, this one from September, of saying some general updates first, then going over my New Year resolutions, even though maybe it doesn't make sense because I made the video of the New Year's resolutions just last week, but I don't know, to kind of at least orient my headspace there, and then answering the classic questions from this girl, I forgot her name, Ta. I think it started with a Z. Anyways, if you go back to the beginning of these status updates, you can see the name of the girl who gave me the inspiration to answer these questions in my status updates. So, general part of the status update February 2026, like more or less currently what the vibes are, how am I currently, what are the things on top of mind, you could say, and I guess my routines are basically still in the course to become a train driver. Since the last update, well, we've finished since then all the theory. We went through the technical modules, we had vacation, Christmas in Spain, we started the vehicle modules, and now we've finished with the vehicle modules and we're doing like either standalone stuff, and we're going to be driving the trains ourselves, well, with a trainer, quite often, basically, not sure if every day, but really continuously until March or so, until middle March. Then we start a little bit again with some other modules of theory, security systems and so on, and then more driving until just the preparation for the exams. So a lot of driving is incoming, but for the moment I'm still in the transition period. We've already had 1 day of driving, tomorrow we have another, but so far we've just had kind of like transition modules and like a couple of exams and so on. So yeah, that's essentially where I'm at in this kind of train Zusatzbescheinigung journey. Some, I guess, more personal things or like course related things. One guy I mentioned in the previous status update that we'd had some losses, aka people who were in the course but who left or were kicked out, and now there was another loss extra that happened, I think, in October, so right after that status update. And yeah, he was the person who I was, I guess, closest with, who I talked the most with, and who I went on walks through Munich, and also the person I was in the cabin with. So yeah, I lost, well, no, I didn't lost them to death or something, right? But I lost them here in Munich, so, well, lost him here in Munich. So in that sense, like, how has the change been? To be honest, not mega different or anything like this. Since we've had classes and only like a couple of days like that, I guess the weekends have become a little bit, on the one hand, more organizable by me, so I'm able to be more on my own or so on. And to be honest, I don't get hit by mega loneliness things, but because before it's like when someone calls you to do something, you kind of react in like a positive way, or like, oh, nice that someone's hitting me up, and also like, oh, I had something planned already, I had my daily structure, and I have to move things around, right? So now nothing moves my things around usually. There's no people making plans with me or anything like this. So in that sense, it sounds maybe a little bit lonely, but I don't know, to be honest, it hasn't hit me yet, as in I don't really miss it. I think in the questions that I'll answer, I'll go a bit over why, but yeah, I don't know. In that sense, that happened, and that is how the vibes are. So I guess now the things are like more lonely and more, I guess, in my head, or more tied to the internet back as it used to be, you could say. And yeah, that doesn't sound super good, but to be honest, it's how it is, right? Then we can go on to my New Year's resolutions, and I guess maybe something to note is that in my New Year's resolutions there is no aspect about, for example, yeah, if you look at these categories, there is no social category, right? So I don't know, it's kind of interesting that even though I would define my life as a little bit lonely, and I certainly feel loneliness a lot of the time, I guess it hasn't passed through my head to like, well, it has passed through my head, but it hasn't, like, I don't know, evolved. I haven't kind of like made the decision or like taken this kind of, oh, I really need to put myself out there in some way or something like that. I don't know, it hasn't, like I hadn't reached that point of feeling like that. I guess the social situation that I encounter on the day to day plus whatever are kind of enough on like even way too much for me at the moment. So I'm just focusing mostly on like these kind of like things. So I don't know. We'll see how I evolve in that sense through the year or whatever. But yeah, essentially that's how it's been. And yeah, my New Year resolutions this year have changed. I've made already a video about this. But yeah, essentially these are the new categories. Instead of like, for example, the writing, instead of being like harsher, it's now easier. Exploring is kind of like optional. Money and entrepreneurship are optional, right? And there are like more explicitly defined appearance, German, etc. categories, right? So physical, I would say that I have been hitting my New Year resolutions. Like this is like as in progress, right? Throughout the year, how am I progressing in these categories? And even like the beginning of the year, I didn't have the resolutions yet. I wanted to hit cardio, and at the beginning of the year, I didn't. In Spain, I didn't. But now, since officially setting it on the video, I have actually hit the cardio at least this week. So I hope I can keep that going. Then studying. I wouldn't say that I have hit the couple of super serious study blocks that I wanted to hit, but on the test that I've had, it was enough. I know that that is not an excuse for the resolution to not nail the resolution, but at least I did it. German, I have listened to a podcast to train my audio a little bit, which is something that I've never, I guess, done in the past. I haven't finished the podcast either, but I've listened more than my quota that I had marked. But also, it was like at regular speed while doing other things. It wasn't like a focused thing, so I don't know, I'm not super fully satisfied. Also because I don't know how to measure my progress or how to measure in general, not my progress, but my inputs, right? I don't know exactly what inputs to measure and how to measure them, what inputs exactly should I be measuring, right? For example, listening to podcasts, but how do I listen? How do I measure that I've done it correctly? Can I just do casual? Should I do review? Should I change my method entirely? And to make it feel really good, I have to like hire someone, right? If I hire a teacher for 1 hour and try to do something with them for this hour, spend $15 or whatever, put money on the line, maybe that makes me go like, oh, I've done some progress, right? I've put my money on the line, I've put a building block here, and then if I come prepared to the class. I don't know, maybe there are like different ways. I don't know, seeing my face with beard all the time is so annoying. So I don't know, seeing my face with beard all the time is so annoying. So yeah, I hope I deal with this, and it should have been already like last week, but I haven't done it still. So I don't know. It's just that my schedule is getting a little bit weird, but I think I have to make peace with my schedule being weird, right? So yeah, I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. Then writing documentation, by doing this, I guess I'm good because the bar is so low that by doing a couple of status updates a year or like 2 or 3, it's kind of already it's kind of like enough, right? I've written a couple of journal entries, I have no numbers. So in that sense, I'm leaving kind of my mark, going on, not letting it drift too much, and kind of like setting like some breadcrumbs, you could say, right? Like a breadcrumb a month was something that I wanted to do. And yeah, with this one, I'm kind of hitting it. Exploring, I've gone to a Nepalese restaurant yesterday or last Thursday, I think. So in that sense, I've hit that. I've kind of hit that novelty spot for the week and in general for a month, or I don't know how it's measured, but I've at least been hitting some new things. Money, entrepreneurship, for the moment nothing. These two were optional categories, so I guess any progress is good. And for the money, I've only thought of ideas, but I haven't sat down to develop anything. So in my opinion, that doesn't count. Because I haven't also sat to think particularly about developing this thing, right? I've only just asked ChatGPT for ideas and so on, but haven't actually like sat down even with AI or whatever, or even to write something concreter. Then we're going, I think, to the questions, right? So, questions. How do you feel about your money
situation right now. And I would say that I already have my contract for 2026 locked in, right? So that means that my housing contract, I mean. I'm moving houses, and that was my main worry, my main source of insecurity in terms of income, right? What happens if I don't find a flat? And now for 2026 and like beginning 2027, I have already a place to live. So in that sense, I'm calm. I'm not fully settled because it's only until 2027, and after that, I will have to find something. But this kind of at least gives me time to look for stuff, time to get a feel on the housing market, I guess, and also time to save a little bit more in case I need like a buffer, a little bit of a buffer, right? So yeah, I'm not fully settled, but in the short term at least, I'm not worried. And I didn't even make financial New Year resolutions. Maybe I should make something like to be a bigger emergency bank in case I do need to rent something that's expensive short term or something like that. But yeah, my money situation is like, I don't know, not worried basically. I'm not swimming in abundance, and if I spend too much, it's like I notice it in my bank account, but I also notice it in my physical surroundings, right? If I spend too much in physical things, it takes too much space and I don't have physical space for it. So having a small place kind of helps to not be too worried about it, right? It's like my space is as constraining or even more as my money. Then, how do I feel about my job employment situation? My job employment situation, daily activities right now, essentially my routines and all this, right? And right now, the studying part was nice, right? The vibe, as I write here, wasn't top tier. Basically, it seems like the mood of the people, so many people have left. The ones that remain, yeah, we're cool, etc. But the training is not getting better, you know? It's getting a little bit vaguer, a little bit more you're on your own vibes. So there's a lot of uncertainty, right? And also the big exams are in like are kind of far away, right? So I don't know, it's hard feeling super prepared to it, right? I don't feel like any of us, but especially the ones that are doing the worst, are feeling like super prepared or like super hopeful that they're going to ace the exams or anything like this, right? So in that sense, yeah, I don't know. The vibe doesn't feel insane, but the activities themselves, the routines, going to class, learning about these kind of trains things, speaking to these German people about their trains, like letting them hear them say their things, etc. It's like it's entertaining. It's not crazy. I mean, the people complain a lot of if we have to go past 2:30 p.m. or something, we have to be there past 2:30. It's like whoa, crazy, right? But I don't know. In that sense, personally, it doesn't bother me. I'm going to go into this again, but personally, it doesn't bother me. It bothers me, like the vibe bothers me. But the activities themselves, like I don't know, I could get used to that. Even though I also feel tired if that happens, right? I don't know. It doesn't bother me like mentally or something like this. And yeah, the thing is that we're going to transition right now into the next couple of weeks. It's going to practice, and for the moment, I'm postponing the motorcycle license because, yeah, I guess I feel like I have too much on my plate, right? I have my New Year's resolutions. I guess it is kind of crazy that not, like, I guess the train thing, since it's the main thing and it's also a license, I guess it counts as doing some license things. But I guess I haven't tried a lot of things in this kind of money entrepreneurship side. They don't tie a lot into this, right? I feel like maybe that could be like the working long term on this, and I could assign it there, but for the moment, they're going to postpone things, and haven't really thought of anything outside of my New Year resolutions. Okay, like bettering my German, fitness, and some appearance things, right? Aside from that, I haven't thought of anything of any hobbies or anything like that. Maybe games, but not even that. So yeah, and except for fitness, maybe swimming, because since I'm also going to switch gyms, I think I'm going to have to change my fitness routines. So we'll see. Maybe I'll go back to being thin since I'm going to be swimming and doing more cardio focused stuff instead of like strength. Or maybe I'll also sign up for a strength gym. We'll see. Then, how do I feel about the environment I live right now? And this ties into the vibe thing from the employment situation, I guess, right? The environment physically. Here, it's going to change, so we'll see, right? But so far, I've liked the building. I think there are no big changes in respect to what I said in September. So I like this building. I like the city vibes. I like the kind of this is a building. This is chill. Since then, a lot of more Spanish people have come in from the courses, right? Also from the Deutsche Bahn, from the next waves. And I haven't liked that a lot because it causes this little bit of like kind of awkwardness, right? Of seeing these classmates when I'm going to the gym or something and seeing them around in the hallways. I don't know. It makes me a little bit like, but it's like a super small feeling of like awkwardness. So I don't really care, right? I could get used to it perfectly. And so far, I like everything else of like it being a big building, the area is decent, and since I got my wallet back when I lost it twice, I have like kind of more faith in the people being like, I don't know, at least nice and not being a dangerous place, right? And it's convenient. And yeah, I don't know. And I guess Munich in winter is actually pretty. I don't know. It wasn't horrible this year. It wasn't like there was not a lot of sunlight, but well, actually, many days we had sunlight. The hours are not super crazy. At 5 p.m., it's still daylight, to be honest. So it's like at 6:30 or so on, it starts getting darker again, or it's already like pitch black, you could say. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of used to it. I haven't been like mega seasonally depressed, you could say. So I guess I even like Munich winters, to be honest. And yeah, in Christmas, for example, they're pretty, like the city gets like super lit up. So even though it's the darkest time of the year, it's also like kind of pretty, and there are a lot of activities, a lot of markets, etc. And the vibe of the city is like cool as well, a lot of tourists. And then January, it has flown away so fast that I haven't noticed, to be honest, nothing insane, right? And it hasn't been depressing or anything. It has just been cold, but with some sunny moments, some snow, varied, you could say, right? Some rain, less rain. I don't like rain, and there has not been a lot of rain, so in that sense, it's probably the best it could have been. And yeah, I don't know. Then I don't know. Then we could go into the next. Well, we'll see how the next winter goes. But yeah. And the next question: how do I feel about following my intuition recently? I feel like maybe I've improved a little bit. I think more chill. I think I question myself less in the day-to-day stuff. Like class, for example, I feel like I'm confident in my level of German to tackle these studies. So in that sense, I feel like the next day again, and usually they answer for the moment. So I'm happy about that. So far, so yeah, in that sense, I'm chill and I'm cool. I'm more, I don't know, more comfortable with with following my intuition and my letting my mind rest. You could say, right? I'm more chill. I'm still blocked in some other areas, in the classic areas that I'm blocked, that I have always been blocked. In those other senses, there has not been any progress or whatever. Yesterday, Valentine's Day, for example, like relationships, etc. That still is like a subject that I'm not passing anytime soon. But yeah, I have my reasons for that, and yeah, I'm trying to work slowly on these reasons, blah blah blah. But yeah, it's a difficult process, and my New Year resolutions are also like, I guess, tangentially targeting that aspect, right? Trying to become more comfortable, blah blah blah, right? So I'm doing what I kind of have to do. I'm still torn and blocked in many aspects, but I don't know. I've been doing like kind of small bits of like not progress, but like attempts at things. So far failing, but maybe I don't know, maybe I'll figure something out. Then, what really makes me happy? I have some happiness moments while alone. Right? There are some moments when I feel like I've accomplished things. I go out to a floor mat. I buy some things for for the Game Boy. I'm dressed in a way that I feel like, I don't know, it kind of like represents my style or whatever. And I'm kind of moving on my own, doing things. Those moments, I feel like they make me happy. Then during the routines, if everything's flowing, I feel connected. I feel like I'm getting things. I feel like, oh, this is interesting, blah blah. So yeah, those moments I would say are the most happy. Social moments are also like good, but yeah, I didn't mention this on the environment part, so I think I should go back to this. But in this environment part, it used to be that I used to mention something like social moments make me happy, right? That was because I was with my friends in Spain, right? And here, for example, the people I'm stuck with aren't bad. Well, there are some caveats to this aren't bad people thing, but what is definitely true is that I don't vibe 100% with them in things that I do find important, right? So I don't know. I don't think you need to vibe 100% with the people you hang out. And in Spain, for example, I don't even vibe 100% of the way with the people I hang out with, right? But I don't know. The vibe is different, right? I feel like we are more aligned, and our life experiences are like more like closer together in Spain with the people in Spain that with these people here, and that the way they operate on and I don't know, that kind of argumentation, so on, aren't things that I particularly like from this social environment, right? So how do I feel about the environment I live in right now? Socially, I don't feel great about that. I have to say that. I do have to say that. So yeah, right now I'm finding more happiness alone than with people, to be honest. With people, yeah, there are some moments, there are some moments of connection, there are some moments of hanging out and enjoying something together, etc. But I definitely don't feel like part of some social fabric or something like this. So that part definitely is not something that is making me happy right now. Right? I guess the people I'm stuck with is I'm not comfortable with. I wouldn't say comfortable. I guess I'm not comfortable with how things have turned out, and the circles I'm in, and so on. So, in that sense, yeah. I guess the thing is that I don't believe they themselves believe we're going to stay together close. So I think it's like I'm tanking out these times together and like trying to get what I can and try to give what I have with not without kind of like holding back intentionally. It's things like I don't know, like generosity or whatever, right? I'm not holding these things back, but I'm also kind of not sharing vulnerability. Haven't found someone in real life, at least any of my current circles, etc., that I really vibe with and that I think, whoa, I've really connected to this person, right? So yeah, I don't know. In real life, I guess there are decent people, right? For example, the German people, our trainers, etc. Some of them are like really good and really funny, etc. But it's still not a one-to-one relationship, right? It's a trainer versus someone like a trainee, and they also are German and they are hanging out with 10 or like group, maybe smaller groups, but still of groups of funny people, etc. It's not like symmetrical, you could say. So when they get together with the German trainers and speak among each other, the vibe is different, right? So it's I don't know. Even though they are nice and they are helpful, etc., I feel distance, right? And also with the Spanish people, I feel this kind of separation that I've mentioned, right? I feel this kind of sense of we're not part of the same social fabric. It's like we're temporarily together because of this purpose, right? But when I'm done with this purpose and you guys are either done with your purpose or you fail, there's not going to be much connecting us together, right? So in that sense, that's the vibe that I feel. So I can't really say who makes me happy in that sense, right? When I think back, I'm at least far away And yeah, basically I needed to go away to work on these things, etc. Right, I couldn't do it there, and now that I'm here and I still have, as I have said, I'm still blocked in certain things. Yeah, I'm not. It's not like I'm ready to come back and hang out like it always was or something like this, right? I know in my head that it's not like this. So yeah, sadly, even though the people that I'm, yeah, my friends from Spain, etc., who have always been there, blah blah blah. One is in the Philippines also, so it's like, yeah. Then, how is my health? Physically, I got my teeth checked out a couple of weeks ago. No, this week, Monday, and I'm going to have to get checked again to someone to put my retainer again. So in that sense, yeah, they're doing all right, you could say. But my body fitness, okay, more or less. I've gained weight since, not sure if it's September, but definitely since April, right? Since then I've gained weight. So I've noticed that cardio stuff, it's, I would say, not hard, but it's, I guess, beginning, right? That small hump at the beginning is harder than it used to be, I guess. And yeah, not sure what else. I guess one more issue that appeared was that trying to do one stretch once, my knee clacked, so that was a painful moment. But right now it's like I feel more or less normal again. But there are like tiny moments when I notice, oh, that had happened, right? I notice moments when I'm kind of like bending my knee in some weird way or whatever, that I notice, oh, I did bend my knee that way, that moment, right? It's like it's maybe 98% weight of the way there, but it's not the same. I notice it. So in that sense, that's preocupatory. And yeah, I guess my mental health is still as always, so nothing much worse or much better. The winter hasn't been that bad mentally in that sense. So winter, because I came home, right? If I hadn't gone home, I wonder how the winter would have been. I still have said that Munich in the Christmas season, etc., is pretty, but maybe without that going back and regenerating, it hits different. So I don't know. But yeah, mentally also, I've tried to find therapists and so on. I'm trying to get into the system, but it's more difficult than I expected. And in that sense, I don't know. I don't like healthcare in this country, to be honest. I feel like it's a little bit weird. So yeah, that's it. If you've watched this video, thank you for watching. And that's how my life is right now. I think I'm going to leave maybe the previous or the whole playlist of status updates over here, as I usually do in these kind of videos. And yeah, thank you for watching. Goodbye. So today I wanted to talk about some out loud reflections from being a train driver versus being a research and development consultant in aerospace. And these are like two jobs in the transport industry. I haven't done them a lot for a long time, either of them. One, the research and development consultant, R&D consultant, that thing was like around 1 year and also at a very low level, basically like a junior. The junior is the most junior it gets. And train driver, right now I haven't actually driven trains alone yet. I'm still in the practice apprenticeship part of it, but I feel like I've got a little taste of both and I wanted to compare them to each other. I'm going to start with being a train driver because it's what I'm currently doing and what sparked this kind of train of thought on me. And I guess one thing that really stood out to me is that you feel needed in a way, right? The job is very real. When you're driving a train, you are very palpably useful. But you're also replaceable. Anyone from the 1000 people in your company who worked at this position could do that exact same thing, and you're not bringing anything special that any of them wouldn't bring. The conversation orally always ends with Feierabend. Constrained is in that people are capped in what living that does not feel incredible. Feeling useful and needed does feel good, but feeling mindlessly useful does not palpably useful. But you're also replaceable. Anyone from the 1000 people in your company who worked at this position could do that exact same thing, and you're not bringing anything special that any of them wouldn't bring, aside from small things. There are differences, but it's not like a great equilibrium, I would say. And I don't know, before people argue or whatever, I wanted to kind of preemptively cover this argument, and it's like, how do you see the mindlessness? And in my way, it's like seeing the nature of the conversations that people have. And these conversations are purely, and also then talking about their day-to-day lives of like, what do they have to do today? And the things that they have to do today, people talk about them. Something that is kind of like slowly depressing me in a way. It's like when people talk to each other, they think which I personally don't really think is great. I don't find that super meaningful. Then another way it feels like constrained is in that people are capped in what they can do positively. So for example, in the ways you can succeed or you can give value, those kind of things are very capped. In the train driving world particularly, because there is like this very clearly timed Fahrplan, it's called in German, timetable for when you have within the constraints that you have, trying to maximize what you do, some respect for the positions and so on. I think I'm now going to move on to driving the train smoothly and braking smoothly, research and development, aerospace consultant. And one thing that was true is that you were paid to think. So that is a kind of work that is interesting, right? Getting paid to think about stuff and to categorize information and to organize information has a certain, a certain flavor that I do like. That never actually gets done, and you can feel it by the way getting paid to think about stuff and to categorize information. The problem in this case, particularly in this research and development context, is that
it's low-key purposeless shit that never actually gets done, and you can feel it by the way the projects are handled and so on, and the processes that you are getting paid for it. That's how it felt to me. But conversely, because the work is about thought, and I think I'm also not built that way as some friends who are much more engineer minded, I would say. But I do like those conversations, having those conversations, and they make me think, because there's sort of thought of like what's possible, what is not possible in this small aero consultant role, and also in my experiences. And that is that the conversations, at least, are like much more interesting. I won't say that I'm the biggest engineering fan and so on, or I can like be at this level of like discussing engineering all the time and like really engineer-centric topics. I think I'm also not built that way as some friends who are much more engineer-minded, I would say. But I do like those conversations, having those conversations, and they make me think, because there's sort of thought of like what's possible, what is not possible, aka kind of like exploring the boundaries, and so being solved in this particular instance. So maybe in some other particular instance they have been solved that you can copy them, but also that gives you the chance to improve. So when you're discussing these problems, there is always this kind of improvement mindset, and there is like this possibility, at least you can choose the easy way and you can choose to copy, but if you can choose to, but you can also choose to like the opposite of the thing that I had said before, right? These kind of ways to succeed. It's also sometimes it's also capped in a certain way by physics, for example, right? But it feel, in that sense, the ways that the things are capped feel real. For example, if you're designing some kind of part, even if it's for a project that doesn't exist, you know, if you're designing a part, for example, some wing for an airplane, if you're designing this wing and you're optimizing it, and you can't optimize it anymore based on this parameter from this thing, it's like, you know, you have done your best, and maybe there are some, like maybe there could be some other ways or whatever, but using this kind of like approach you've taken, you know that you've reached some kind of like physical limit that is real, you know, that is at least based, maybe not real in the sense that it's like an actual body of thing that has been experimented on, but the simulation that you have used, kind of like this method that you have used to arrive to this design, is actually based on some like real constraints, real forces that you have simulated, or like, yeah. Then the problem with these unreal situations is that sometimes the real forces you are using in things that like, but then the limits you find and the caps that you are those kind of, are some, yeah, there are these kind of guidelines are, yeah, they're usually like safety oriented, and maybe they're dumb because they're like too safe, but being too safe is never like dumb. So, well, in railways, for example, there is the case that they are actually like, are some, are those kind of caps, are some, yeah, there are also rules that you have to follow, and there is normatives, and there are like guidelines and so on, but these kind of guidelines are usually like pretty sensible, or that you can actually follow them pretty closely. For example, yeah, they're usually like safety oriented, and maybe they're dumb because they're like too safe, but being too safe is never like dumb. So, but that's also, but it's like you can tell when one big internal constraint, it's weird, it's hard to explain, but it's like when you yourself have to make your own rules and no one watches over you, or like the people who watch over you are low-key vague and things so on, it's like you for covering your ass purposes create some mega strict rules that then slow everything down. That's kind of like my railway example. Meanwhile, in the aerospace example, there are some rules, but it's like many of the limitations are actually looking more physical than actually made up by rules, at least in research and development. Maybe in real aerospace engineering and so on, then maybe it probably runs into similar topics. But yeah. So both are similar, I guess, in this dancing around rules thing, but I also sense this kind of like different branches. So yeah, that's my little ramble about these two reflections. Bear in mind that I'm not a pro at any of these both branches, so maybe a pro train driver is like, whoa, you know so little actually about the job. There are like so many exceptions to the rules. There are like so many different days, so many days with surprise. Okay, but yeah, to me it felt a little bit. I was also not getting paid that much, and I was also not getting paid for which, for some reason or another, I have never actually gotten that. Go many ways. I could go. I don't know also what I want for my future. I wanted to talk out loud to see if I actually got some kind of like synthesis, and I don't know, I feel like I could go many ways. I could go, maybe, I feel like my next path is like going to cars, the topic I've always liked all of my life, but for which, for some reason or another, I have never actually gotten that deep into it. Perhaps it's because it's actually what I do like, so I feel like more afraid or like more self-conscious when I'm not actually good at it or something like this. So maybe my next thing is in cars, maybe it's also more applied and more practical. Maybe instead of like driving cars, it's like fixing up or like restoring or something like that, having like my own company where I have to take the decision. What the future holds for me. And I hope you found these reflections interesting. Feel free to leave whatever thoughts got sparked in the comments below. And yeah, thank you for watching if you reached until the end. I'm not sure what I will leave here in the end card, so we'll see. Feel free to watch that if the title seems appetizing. Okay. Am I still on? Status update, end of May 2026. First, I'm going to talk about the things that happened, then a little bit of the progress on the New Year resolutions, and then, as lately, the questions from, I think she was called Kitara or something like this. I forgot. You can check out, as always, the beginning of the playlist where the questions are laid out there. just looked it up to do her justice. She's called Karima, by the way. Karima. That was her name. Karima. Karima's questions. And yeah. So first, with the things that happened since, let's say, February. Since the last status update. And basically, bloop, I moved houses. So that thing that I mentioned that was going to happen in a couple of weeks did happen. And yet now I have been like more or less 3 months or so in this house. End of this month, tomorrow, I think, a couple of days, is going to be technically like the 3rd month anniversary, the 3rd month anniversary. And yeah, I guess I'll talk more about that in like what's the environment question. But yeah, basically it's more or less fine. There are some things that are better and some things that are worse, and all in all more or less similar. I have almost finished all of the driving shifts. Basically we had 40 shifts. This is 40 Schichten, and now I'm at the 37th one. And next week okay, more tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, I have 38, 39, 40 should be. Probably I'll do some more afterwards, but cold here in Germany. Most of the ones that I've had are either early or night. Day shifts I've had way less, or also evening shifts. Most of these have been early, evening and night. Day, a couple, only 2. I began with a classmate, Angel, and yeah, he's no longer with us, not because he died, but rather because he was kicked out. I think he's still here in Germany, but yeah, he got kicked out because of his diploma and so on. And from then onwards, which was like the 10th shift or something like this, I've been alone basically on my shifts. And yeah, I would say that personally I feel a little bit worse. I wrote that there. I don't know exactly why. But yeah, I guess outside of going on these shifts, which has been I would say like a decent change. It's like basically working, right? It's basically full-time work. So outside of that, I haven't done much else in my free time. I don't have like a lot to mention. And it's mostly like errands and maybe watching some YouTube and some things like this, but nothing like crazy, not some kind of crazy project or something that happened that was like mega relevant and so on. I guess I'll talk a little bit more about things that happened a little bit on those terms, maybe here in this next section, perhaps. Progress on New Year's resolutions. I actually literally haven't looked at my New Year's resolutions that I remember since probably like March or something like this, right? So it's actually like a decent reminder of how bad I've drifted from these resolutions. By the way, it's late. It's 3:20. I mean, tomorrow I have like a evening shift, but evening shift means that it starts at like 4 p.m. in this case and ends in the evening at like 9, at like midnight, past midnight, 12:49. And yeah, basically fitness related, move the houses, environment different, and in particular I lost the gym. So that was, I guess, the biggest loss that I do feel like my quality of life has been reduced because of that, because I lost the gym. So I lost all the progress that I had made in fitness. On this New Year's, in this status update from February, I mentioned that I had improved a little bit on my gym progress. So in addition to this strength training that I was doing, I added back the cardio. And for these last couple of weeks of gym, I did do that, but now that's over. I tried ice skating actually also in this week, this couple of last weeks, when I was in that building, I tried it once or twice, and then when I moved here, I tried it also once or twice. Starting from this house and going I think walking from here to there, I did that once, and like using the bus, I did that twice, if I recall correctly, or maybe 2 and 2, I don't know. But basically, I tried that skating and I did like it a lot. But outside of the season, which ended, but I didn't join for some reason. Like, it's kind of expensive. There's like a pass, but I'm not sure if it will work or not, and the pass has increased in price. I'm not sure if I would like actually rentabilize it. Also long hair, blah blah blah. I don't know. It's difficult. Maybe now in summer it feels like a better idea, but we'll see how it goes in winter. Also, not only winter, but like the rainy seasons. And yeah, so basically I lost the strength progress and I didn't add any cardio on top of that to compensate like I was kind of planning to. So that was like an utter failure on fitness terms in my New Year's resolutions. I should probably try to get back on track in some way, but I'm finding it kind of like hard to fit into my days and so on. Definitely a strength routine that's like consistent. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find that, and a cardio routine on the days that I have free. Maybe I could try that. I could try to aim something like this, but I probably start by things that feel fun, like roller skates and so on. But we'll see. Then studying. I haven't hit any goals or whatever. I also haven't had any checkpoints, you could say. I haven't had any tests outside the LZB that I did pass kind of like without any problems. That was like a module in the middle of the shifts around April, if I recall correctly, and yeah, it was fine. And so yeah, we will have soon this Prüfungsvorbereitung. The next thing that's coming up are the exams. I didn't mention it earlier in things that happened, although I have it written, but those are the things that are coming up next. So I probably try to kind of like go harder when we kind of like get the dates of like our Prüfungsvorbereitung and so on. But yeah, I should probably like get going at least now. So like 2 weeks before the exam, or like 2 weeks before preparing the exam, to have things like a little bit chewed up before cramming these 2 previous weeks, I would say. German, I haven't done any of like those routines that I mentioned. I also haven't done like the vocal training routine that I planned to combine with German either. So yeah, I've watched a couple of movies in German on the cinema, so that's interesting. But it was like a couple of weeks ago, and it was like 2 movies, and it's not like then I did try to mine some vocabulary or something like this. No, I simply watched the movies, and the parts that I didn't understand, I guess I just didn't really understand them, and so on. I guess I now know some frustrations that I hadn't actually like pieced that well together because I hadn't encountered them in the real world or something. So yeah, I guess now I really feel in my veins, right, that listening and speaking are things that are really making me frustrated on the day-to-day. Speaking, for example, to the trainers, not being able to communicate, basically, not even to the level that I think, but also to communicate more effectively. To stumble upon words less, to stumble with words less, and to be able to find at least roundabout ways of explaining things that I want to explain. So then it feels like, I don't know, kind of like lonely and boring, that kind of things. I'm kind of like appearance. Laser, I did in April. I did go back to Spain and I did laser once there, but since then I haven't done the May laser. It should be like, I think not beginning of April, It was like more almost mid-April. I don't know. It was like in this beginning mid-April, but I haven't done May in Germany. Should have been like a couple of weeks ago, I guess. And yeah, so I guess I'm still on this wave of like feeling blocked here in Germany, and yeah, also between the shifts and like not being able to plan far ahead and so on, it feels difficult to like be able to say, hey, I'm going to schedule for this day some laser, because also the laser people are like the ones that have free trials are like weird. I don't know. Maybe I should just pay up 70 euros and that's fucking it. Then regarding exploring, this is probably, it was optional I think, but it's probably the only topic where I don't feel like I've done badly. I don't exactly remember the metrics, but I'm going by vibe. And yeah, I would say that I wrote that I'm not sure if I hit the targets because I don't really know the metrics, but have eaten at a couple of different places like Thai food. I've ordered up some food. I mean, I cannot really call the Thai food, but I've tried a couple of others. If I recall correctly, at least Vietnamese, one that I had already tried, which was new but with someone else, and a couple of those cravings that I've had, I've tried to resolve. And yeah, that's, for me, that's always interesting. And I would say that I have done some side quests on my pauses when I had night shifts. When in the night shift you have like this long pause, and it's sometimes in some weird faraway place. These last couple of weeks it has been like in Holzkirchen and Petershausen, so those towns are like pretty boring. But I still tried to explore a little bit the town during the night, and I did find out that they were boring, but it was like an interesting experience to walk around the town that I didn't know, so that's cool. And then the other 2 other days it has been in Freising and in Tutzing, and those 2 places have lakes. Also in Hersching, all those 3 places have lakes or bodies of water or like the river. So I don't know, going to a body of water, even if it's during the night, it feels interesting. So yeah, then I've also said yes to some things, like for example going to Prosecco, which is a gay club, and I've gone there with NA. I've written his name / nickname there, NA, and yeah, it was a good experience, to be honest. And I feel like kind of like, I would say, proud of having said yes, and not kind of like not push it out at the end, or like not put on some excuse like, oh, I don't know, blah blah blah. So yeah, I'm glad I accepted. Entrepreneurship, nothing solid. I have a couple of things planned. I maybe did like a first pre-draft of a couple of things, but yeah, nothing solid by any means. Then we can go to the questions. Karima's questions. In long time, but yeah. So they are gimmick expenses, although I have been eyeing them out for a while, and I have like, I guess, done my research and things like this. But still, how do I feel about the? Oh, sorry. And I'm still not thinking about the new house because that was like an expense that was kind of taken off my mind. And because of the things that I mentioned, kind of a little bit, I've hinted at already, and below I'm going to mention it more. I'm not mega worried even if I were to not find something. I feel like, yeah, they'd lose out on me, and not that I would lose on this huge opportunity, you would say, you know? How do I feel about my job, employment situation, daily activities right now? I feel less motivated than before. I feel like what some trainers have been saying has been negative, and negative regarding me wanting to stay, you know? So either their attitude is negative and I wouldn't like to have them as like co-workers, or the things that they have said like, yeah, we're actually not looking for people right now. So that has me thinking like, oh, maybe they don't actually want me, right? They don't need me, so maybe it's like I'm not going to put as much effort, right? So I'm kind of like less motivated than before. And yet the mood that has stayed with me has kind of like been negative overall, even though the majority of trainers, most experiences have been either neutral or good. I have to say that, I don't know, I kind of like did prefer more the formal learning phase than this practical hands-on, but with some trainer there always, and like through the whole shift. I don't know. I can find things that are interesting about that, and it has been an interesting experience, I will say. But my feelings after the experiences are not like top notch, I will say. Then, on my free time, before talking about art or pastimes, my free time I feel really fragmented, and I feel like I lack a lot of clarity towards it, and I feel like maybe the next answer will kind of make it clear. But yeah, it is something that does trouble me, right? In my free time, basically, I either watch YouTube or read Twitter or something, or like go to the park, to the Ost Park, and journal or something like this, or which is usually like a sad moment because I'm journaling about frustrating things and so on. Or yeah, I stay here at the house feeling sad and lonely and so on. And maybe a couple of days I go out to eat with some classmates, or I go bike something different, or instead of like doing normal chores. How do I feel about the environment I live right now? So, I have moved houses and I still haven't made it fully mine. I have it pending for these 3 months, basically, for maybe 2 of those 3 months. The first month I bought the washing machine, and that was for me enough, but for that month. But then the next two, starting from the first one, I wanted to go to IKEA to get a couple of different furniture, to make my space a little bit more mine and to make it like a little bit more organized to, I guess, my purposes and so on. But I haven't done that yet. I haven't kind of like found the time, even though I have had like free Mondays and Tuesdays where it would be ideal, for example. But I haven't found like the time or the motivation or something to. They don't take up too much of my time, and I'm usually like pretty chill in that way and so on. So yeah, I don't know. It's like what I take versus what I get. Good enough, right? So the thing that does feel a little bit colder is like the co-workers, technical co-workers from the building, which is owned by the Deutsche Bahn and so on, or not owned but rented. And it does feel a little bit more judgmental in that sense. Like the encounters themselves that I've had haven't been bad, but they also feel like a little bit awkward and so on. There feels like there is a certain amount of recognition, for example, going to the U-Bahn and coming back, but I don't know. Then the people around here, they feel like too Eastern European for me, in a weird thuggish vibe. You know what I mean? So the way they dress with this kind of like Prada bag, and like, yeah, not bag, rather like Bauchtasche. Bomb bag, basically. This bomb bag, and the style of like the Nike Tech tracksuit and the gold chains. That vibe, that weird little thuggish vibe, doesn't inspire me confidence, especially when I'm trying to like change my style to something a little bit more expressive or something like this. Then I don't know, it doesn't feel like super right. And for example, the hotel was like a little bit more hotel vibe, so a little bit it felt a little bit more anonymous. This here doesn't feel that way that much. It feels like there is more recognition, something like in those lines, right? feels a little bit more neighborhoody. But I do have the Ostpark close by, so that's a thing that I have enjoyed and that I have actually used a lot, I guess, even though maybe not crazy for, like, for example, running every day or something like that, but going for little walks whenever I have some free time, writing on the banks, etc. That I have used. How do you feel about following your intuition recently? So, kind of the same as always, in the classic areas, bad. It doesn't feel like I'm emotionally safe ever, essentially. So I don't ever feel right or something like that. Doesn't feel like I'm pursuing what I have to pursue or things like this. I'm talking like emotionally, not career-wise here. I'm talking like, yeah, doesn't feel like I'm following what I feel deeply, really deeply that I should do. First of all, it doesn't ever actually like feel really, really deeply because there's always like some doubt. But yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I don't feel great about feeling my intuition, as always. But I will say that I'm growing like a little bit more assertive, aka fed up, basically, like reaching points where I'm kind of like fed up. And that makes me like more assertive, you could say. So yeah, in general, I'm kind of like respectful. I try to be respectful about it, but when I'm fed up, I'm like respectfully fed up. So I can ignore bullshit that people say and yeah, completely make it disappear from my mind and from my preoccupations, you could say, instead of like getting more worried, blah 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 blah. It's like fuck it. Like if I have to forget about this or like about it, and like pretend it never existed. And I kind of like getting better at doing that a little bit, at like ignoring like contradictory advice, those kind of things, right? Then what really makes me happy? Small moments while driving trains do have a certain zen feeling, a certain sense of like, whoa, I'm actually really doing this, and this is pretty cool, right? Like this is actually a cool activity, or like I'm actually like, yeah, this is a weekend, but like fuck it, I don't have any friends here. I wouldn't do any activities here, so spending the day like driving a train on the weekend with this good weather and so on. If I was alone, I would be like chilling on the station. Like this is actually a pretty fucking sweet deal, I would say. So there are like some moments like that. These small adventures, exploration, while in train pauses, or like just going out and about and having dinner and so on alone, do feel nice. They feel like nice moments. Like, oh, I'm getting to discover this kind of like new place. It still feels like I'm in a new place, right? It doesn't feel obviously like my hometown in Spain. It's still a new place for me, even though it's the second place I've lived the most in, but it's still a new place. I also mentioned that I did really like figure skating. I hated how I looked doing it. I've seen like a couple of videos that I recorded for myself and a couple of pictures that I took in the outfits that I had. And I hate how I look, obviously, but the feeling itself, it was like really freeing. The progression, there was like not a lot of progression, but there was like enough progression to make me feel like I wanted to do it more and to make me feel like I want to continue this winter. Even though I'm old and all that, I don't care. It feels like kind of like free. It feels like good. And same kind of like with dancing at the club this past couple of weeks ago or something. It did feel quite freeing to be in the dance club and like to let out at a couple of moments. The first time I let out to this kind of Dua Lipa song after sitting a little bit of like moving like that simply and with a drink, then like leaving the drink out and like giving it all, that felt like quite freeing and like quite finally, right? Like kind of like letting some kind of weight drop. And that those little moments, I guess, do make me happy, I will say. It's always like a bittersweet kind of happy. Like I've never actually like in all of these moments, there's always like a sense of bittersweetness there. There's always, so that's why I don't know, when I read it back, this really part, it's like I don't. It's what fucks it over. It's what makes me actually what makes me take a lot of time to write these things, because I really have to try hard to be able to like isolate the happy part, but it always comes with some sad part afterwards. So yeah, that's, I guess, the not nice part and so on. There's always like some undertone of like, but this could be better some other way, or even though this small moment does make me happy, I know it's like just so fleeting, or some kind of like sensation like this, right? Or like there is like this positive charge, but I know it's brought back by some other negative charge that is actually quite linked. For example, with the figure skating stuff, right? I like the feeling of it, but when I think of how I look doing it, I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous, right? And it brings it down. And or like same with the dancing at the club. If I'm like actually having fun dancing or whatever, then I remember kind of like how it probably looks from the outside, and I'm like, oh, and it brings me down again. And it's like some random fucking dude saying some bullshit, or yeah, or it's actually a nice trainer, I've had a nice day, but then I fuck up and I do something wrong, and I'm like, or then it's like this moment is like nice, but then I've had to telephone someone and I don't understand. There's like some misunderstanding or something. There's always like something waiting for you right at the corner to fuck you up. And yeah, or like these small adventures and explorations, it's like, ooh, it's in the night, I'm exploring this, and I'm like, but this would be better to do in the day, right? Like doing it in the night when you have to is actually kind of interesting by itself, but also you always get the sensation of like that. But this would be way better to do at day, right? So I'm not really like exploring anything. I'm not getting to know anything relevant. It's all just like hidden and things like that. Who really makes me happy? I guess here, in contrast to before, the moments when I see my classmates are actually now really pleasant, and they're really pleasant surprises, right? When I get to hang out with someone, or even when someone asks me to, it's always usually like two people who ask me to wash their clothes, and almost always one, because the other one, he hasn't asked lately in a long time. And yeah, they're now pleasant surprises. When I find them when they ask me for this clothes thing, then it's a little bit annoying, but then the actual conversation and like catching up and so on is like always really pleasant, and catching up with any of the other classmates is also always like a nice, interesting, 85% nice conversation, something like this, right? And or like some interesting catching up, or like some, I guess, balancing of expectations and so on, or like seeing where everybody's at, and that's interesting. Versus when we saw each other all the time, where it was like more a little bit the tensions caused by day-to-day friction. Now it's a little bit more like healthier, in my opinion. I like that more. The dynamics, I feel like I like this one more. And yeah, with this person with whom I went dancing, I've met a couple of times, and yeah, it was nice both times. So I guess hanging out with the kind of person where it feels a little bit safe to talk to about certain things, or to express myself a certain way, even if I will still feel weird about some aspects of the personality, or about the topics that we talk about all the time and so on, or where I feel like I still can't bring myself to say everything I would want to say, or those things. It's still like a nice change of pace, and yeah. But it's still here. It still does feel like I don't have a social fabric, right? Like I'm not part of any kind of community or things like that. Like there's nothing really tying me here, right? Not the culture. I'm not like obsessed over this culture. I don't have like a root here. Like I haven't established roots like some other people maybe feel like they have. For example, by having a girlfriend here who has house, and who have gone in like some kind of dates together with some other couples and so on. For example, I don't have that. So not that I worked hard to build it, by the way. I'm just explaining the situation. Sometimes it is like a longer talk, and because it's like earlier in his morning, you could say, or like earlier in my morning, and it's like his afternoon. So we can talk a little bit more, and yeah, to me it still feels like just like a little catch up, and like I still don't never have anything to say really. But I mean, kind of like feels kind of weird to say that in a video when I'm 33 minutes deep into it. But yeah, I guess this is like a 3-month update, so I have like a little bit more to compress, you could say. And then, how's my health? Physically, I mean, I don't have any crazy symptoms of what I'm going to say, but I have exercised way less, and I have been eating a little bit worse, like a little bit more sweets, more fats, more things like this, more like processed stuff. I have been eating, like, I mean, in the day to day, it's pretty normal. And like when I talk about processed stuff, I am also not talking about like burgers. Well, not burgers, but kind of like burgers. I do have actually some processed burger yet in the fridge, but yeah, I guess I'm talking like small processed stuff like ham, like this cooked ham or like cooked chicken that comes like pre-cooked in like these small slices for sandwiches, and that I have that. I'm eating that a lot lately, which I guess is pretty salty. It has like high sodium, perhaps. I don't know. Those kind of things I've been using lately more. Oops. I'm going to do something. And yeah, even though I'm eating kind of worse, I'm still not eating like mega bad, and I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not eating like all day processed foods and like like ultra processed, and eating all day single ingredient things. No, like I still cook a little bit, and like even my struggle meals are kind of like, I don't know, still a little bit elaborate, right? And I try to bring a little bit of variety or color and so on. But there has been a decrease, and also I'm like less proud of it. I put like less love into it, I guess. Also, I don't take pictures when I've made a meal like I used to do on the other studio, where I guess a little bit more proud of it. But now a little bit less. I do notice, I guess, a little bit that I still would feel like I'm a little bit worse because I have lost this kind of like physical tone, and now when I'm kind of like doing a little bit more physical effort, I feel like I get tired a little bit more easily. And yeah, mentally definitely worse. I've wrote worse probably too there. But yeah, I guess I'm definitely feeling like more sad, more lonely, like more I feel like the mental breakdowns are more regular. I don't know, I don't take note or something like this, but I feel like not regular, like more frequent. Yeah, but I feel like I feel really bad more often, I would say. Not sure if because of being more lonely, hanging out less with the people, feeling, or because of the feeling less optimistic about the future, or like having seen the price. That is what I was talking about with some colleagues, that the price now, I've seen what the price looks like, and the price doesn't look that great, basically. So yeah, that may be part of it, and that ties, I guess, into everything, right? If the price, aka the job that is technically paying for everything, doesn't look that appetizing now, everything else crumbles down with it, and everything else, even though I haven't actually built it yet. But yeah, kind of like the plans to have this safety net are kind of like crumbling down, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, or like, yeah, I don't have any plan B, right? I'm still going to run with this till they kick me the fuck out. But yeah, now it feels like maybe it will reach that point, even though I hadn't thought it possible before. So yeah, that's a little bit less unrelated to mental health actually, but because the main consumer of my mental health is probably other things, but yeah. And yeah, that was status update end of May 2026. Thank you for watching. If you reached till the end, I doubt it anyone has. I don't think these videos get more than like literally 5 views, and I think not a single view reaches the end. Maybe my dad, but yeah. Thank you for watching if that's the case, and goodbye. So I think I'm ending this video now, and sorry, ending the stream, so that the video uploads earlier, so quicker, and so on.